my mic. Okay, my mic's on, but they still can't hear you. And now I'm going to change it, and now they should be able to hear you. Yay! All right, that's good. We're going to check my screen. Okay, the window's actually not looking too bad, but we can fix it a little bit. I'm going to nitpick. And all this is like stuff people... This is really what people tune in for, is to like see me struggle through the tech stuff. And make fun of me for it. Anyway, hello and welcome to episode 10 of Laughing Into the Void. I'm your host, Tom, and as always, co-hosting with me is the lovely Rosalind Paris. Yay! You can watch our previous broadcasts on the District Comedy YouTube and Facebook channels, or listen to them on most podcast platforms. If you enjoy the stream, please consider making a donation of any size at district-comedy.live. Alternatively, like, share, and subscribe to our stuff, because that also helps. But yeah, here with us today, we have Kevin Wong. Kevin is a San Francisco-based podcaster and stand-up. He has a virtual mic titled Introvert's Paradise that takes place on Thursdays and Fridays from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Pacific time. Additionally, his solo podcast, and I have to clarify the name of this. Is it called The Podcast?
Yeah, it's called The Podcast.
Okay, no, it's called The Podcast. The Podcast. But that's also on most podcast platforms from what I saw. And it has over 500 episodes. And you can also catch him this Friday on the show Crazy Funny Asians. And if you're curious about all the details for that, you can go to kevinwongcomedy.com.
Yep.
That sound good? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now I can fucking breathe.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me do this. This is fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was really excited to have you on, because yours was one of, I think at the time I'd only done like 4 different Zoom mics, and yours was one of them. So I thought it was like a nice experience too. So
how was your experience? How was your experience out of the 4?
I'm trying to remember. I've only been to like really good ones so far, so I can't like say that one's my favorite for political, diplomatic reasons.
Just say mine's the worst. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
No, I liked yours a lot. The other one I've been on was Rachel Rothenberg's The Panda Mic, and I've been on Brooke Barcel's. Oh, I'm also getting a text. Okay. My fiance texts when we go live to be like, I can see and hear you. It's been a problem before. But yeah, so that one.
Has your fiance been on this podcast or this?
It's like supposed to be for people in the like comedy entertainment world. So I would have him on one day, because he's actually an actor like me. We met through the same theater company, which is like a fun, cute little like showmance story. So I would have him on at some point. Whisper. I've also been thinking, because he sends me like notes on the show afterwards, and also sometimes questions during the show that are good. So who knows? Maybe he'll take over this show someday while I go on to like try and add more stuff to the District Comedy roster, because he'd be good at that. Anyway. Enough about my fiance.
I love you, Chris.
love you,
I'm
Chris.
so curious. Like, who crushed on who first? Did he make the moves on you, or was it vice versa? Were we like, ooh, that's mine?
I think he was interested in me first, but I have the type of personality where like once I decide that I want something, I really go for it. And I'm unnecessarily aggressive towards it. I was like, we're gonna be together, and he was like, I'm fine with that. I don't know why you're yelling.
Put a ring on it. Put a ring on it.
And I did. But oh my god, that's not what this interview is about. We're talking about you, Kevin. Oh, you know what? We'll sidetrack from our normal template and get to that later. But like, what's going on in the Kevin Wong love life?
Nothing's going on. It's a pandemic. It's a pandemic. There's nothing going on. No, everything is fine. I have a roommate that I hang out with. But that's kind of been my life right now for the last year. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on for most people. As far as like social stuff.
The fact that I spent the pandemic with like a healthy live-in partner is such an anomaly in my life.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
It went wrong. Well, I wouldn't say it went wrong. It went correct at the perfect
time.
Perfect. Although, if we were gonna break up, like, let me tell you, at the beginning of the pandemic, we would have.
It has been like so weird to see people like either who just got into relationships or were already in relationships, like see them be put in like a time capsule. Like equally, I have seen people who like before were doing okay, that when the pandemic hit, they were like, no, actually, I can't stand you. And alternatively,
it's make or break. It's definitely make or break. It's I think this is something that's so different. We're not distracted. You're so focused in on either this person or you're not, you know?
Yeah.
So it's get in or get out.
And like even being focused in, it's like if there was something small about them that bothered you, then it's around all the time, and that's the only thing you think of. But then on the other side of that, I actually know a couple who was like basically they had only been on like 2 dates or something at the beginning of the pandemic, and then it was like, guess we're quarantined together. And they've been together ever since, and that's awesome because now that's like 10 months. That's a substantial relationship. Right? Yeah.
Is that pretty much your story, Ros? Or
we've been dating for about 9 months before it hit. And I had like just moved into my own apartment from a roommate situation. So like if things really lined up well for me. And so we recently moved in together. But yeah, he's actually he owns I talk about this
every
literally
episode.
Every single
That's
time.
Okay. We'll also talk about how like, you know, Zoom mics are great for accessibility and like how's it different from live mics?
Yeah.
But yeah. Sidebar, right?
Owns a bar / concert / comedy / drag / whatever venue that has been closed since March too right now. So that's been fun to explore as a couple.
And small business owner. Yeah, it is. It is rough.
In this economy.
In this economy, no way. Are you telling me the $600 wasn't enough to float that? Oh, man. But anyway, moving on. So we do have like a first and a last question that we kind of like to ask every comic. You're the only one we've ever asked about their relationship life, I think. But so the question is, to start off, for people who may not know you who are watching the show, how would you describe your sense of humor to someone?
God, I never really I get asked that enough that I should have a prompted answer, but I would have to say it's got to be authentic. I think that's kind of the thing that I've been on most recently is you got to stay true to yourself. So I think it's what you see, it's what you get. I haven't really tried to hide anything. So there's a lot of truths right now. Maybe that would be it.
Okay. Then I would then ask, who is you? Like, what are those, or at least like for right now, let's say, what are the like main truths going on?
I'm older. I just had a birthday. It's 43, right? 43.
Yeah,
this is the way I look. That's why I believe Asians are a lot like Muppets, you know? Yeah, we just look funny, but we don't age. That's kind of our give and take. Yeah, so I've dealt with a lot of stuff, like race-wise, that's kind of like come to a surface now. I think with the pandemic that there's a lot of social injustice, you know, so stuff like that. What else? Sports. I'm big into sports. And I think most recently I've fallen in love with my car. Yeah, I have like a young kid's car, and I was ready to sell it to somebody else, and since the pandemic happened I decided to just start modifying it. So I know you guys are looking at this, you're like, why isn't your car modified to begin with? But Yeah, it took a while. You had to save up money for it. So
I
Nice.
once tried to change a headlight and I dropped the screwdriver in my engine and immediately
oh
gave
my
up.
god. Oh yeah.
There's just a rattle forever.
I've lost
So,
so many tools in the engine, and that's the thing. Like, there's no bottom to the engines. Like, where does it go? You
yeah,
know?
yeah. He's like some lucky guy just gonna be walking down the road and he's gonna find like, I don't know, just like a wrench that fell out
Yeah.
of my car because I suck at doing manual labor. Like, what's gonna happen?
I think all tools you should actually like put it around your wrist and just tie it to it. So in case if it falls, like you have like butterfingers, you just get to pull it right back up.
Just like save up some Wiimote straps and just
Oh my
like put
god.
all. There you
Like
go.
balloons. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're San Francisco based? Are you
Yep.
like in the city, Bay Area?
I'm in the South Bay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of like Baltimore and DC. It's a little bit. I'd say it's more like 40 minutes out.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
you already like touched on some pretty interesting things. One of the things I was going to ask you, because you just talked about it in the article in the Chronicle, which was not to like I always feel like it's a little bit weird, but I'm about to read your own words, or at least
Oh god.
whatever they said you said back at you, which was that like you'd found that the audiences themselves are evolving in ways that bring your older material into focus, and that's especially true of, like you said, with like some of the race stuff. So I'm kind of interested if like you wouldn't mind unpacking a little bit what that concept is as far as like the audience evolving as a response to the pandemic.
Okay. So, do you want to hear the backstory to the question, or do you want to hear the evolving audience? Because it's really a two-parter.
Hey,
Well, let's
we got
hear the
time.
back-
Both
Start
of
with
them.
Okay.
the backstory. Why not?
So, when I got asked that question, it was I think that the writer had a narrative that he wanted to go into, and I just kind of went the other way, so he wasn't really sure how to take it. Then he had a follow-up call and he needed a joke. He goes, "Can you tell me this one joke that you said that it evolved with?" And it was more about with police brutality and how things were kind of escalating, and I felt like it was just I had this one tiny little joke I think that got printed, but it just became this huge chunk about like how you could tell like the good cops from the bad cops to just from their names or stuff to it all kind of comes around. Like I felt like the stuff that happened with the cops, they're the power that they exert, the like their presence and the way that they treat people, it's not really they're not really cops, they're just lousy ex-boyfriends, you know, like they have that like, hey, I'm just gonna flex on you type of thing, like I'm gonna control you, me. So that's kind of where it came from. I think he just needed a joke, so I told it to him and he just kind of printed it the way he wanted to print it. So
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then going into, I guess, what was like, I hope was like an actual point that you were trying to make, and the journalist wasn't just trying to like shove a narrative to his editor.
Yeah.
But like the idea of like the audiences evolving because of the pandemic, I think is really interesting. Because like you know, I said I was gonna say, I think, and we were talking a little bit before we started airing, was, you know, one of the things that I've found cool is like being able to produce my own stuff. So it kind of
Right.
gives me I guess control over like my own brand and like my own narrative. So like on the other side of that, I think that since there's more content out there, audiences are like, they don't necessarily have to settle as much as they
Right.
used to, because there's more of a options out there.
And I think being in the Bay Area, especially San Francisco, if you kind of stray the other way, I think a lot of people would actually just kind of like have the mob mentality and just kind of like go, oh, I think you're wrong. So I think it's always better to be on the right side of history. So yeah, it's a little bit more sensitive out here. So I think when audience members now they have that option, they could always just mute you as well too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just like flick to another channel.
Right.
And I mean, it was before, but I think it's even more convenient now. And yeah, even like within your own stuff, you can just mute a person if you decide you don't like them. Well, cool.
I think too, like with like broader audiences and like, you know, people with expanded minds. I know, like with a lot of comedians, you know, there's the whole discussion about people getting offended too easily or being worried about
Yeah.
being canceled, joking about something. And like as performers, I think that actually makes us better because like if you can just like go to like some offensive stereotype and get a cheap laugh, okay, not that that's cool, but okay, that might work for an audience. But if you're trying to like actually not deal with stereotypes, create something fresh and original, that's actually a lot harder. And I think embracing that as a performer makes you a better performer in some ways.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I'm on that same train of thought too. I think it's much more challenging to go the other way and not like follow down the same path. Like a lot of stereotypes, it's like they come from jokes that have been done a million times. But okay, cool. Cleared that up.
A woman who's bad at driving, though.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
I once managed to sideswipe my own car pulling into a parking space. So.
Oh no. Was it a beam or was it another car?
No, it was like, you know how in grocery store parking lots they have those like plastic rails. Yeah. I got over ambitious about what I could squeeze my car into, and then it was just bad.
Well, how big is your car?
I drive a Hyundai Elantra.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it
Anyway.
No, if it makes you feel any better, I was just gonna say, well, okay, so I don't know if you guys have heard of this before. I just learned about it recently from my fiance. Oh no, the picture went out real quick just as I was gonna say something. But apparently it's a thing for like, I guess gay people like iced coffee. Is that true? But I didn't think that was a thing, but then I was like, Chris like came up to me one day, was like, oh, typical gay with his iced coffee, and I was like, I've always liked iced coffee. I don't know how that has to do with...
you like iced coffee too?
Yes, I do like iced coffee, yeah.
I'm gonna keep my eye out for that. That's a good observation. I didn't even think about that.
I was like, I didn't know that was
good.
a thing.
I did hear a good one. My friend told me apparently like a lot of like people have this stereotype that white people only have golden retrievers as dogs, like the golden retriever is like the official dog of the white person. And like he was talking to me about that, and I was like just like staring at a photo on my desk of my golden retriever. I was like, you can't even fucking
You're wrong.
Puppy.
Yeah. Oh baby.
But yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So okay, so like have you been watching sports? Like what's been your like gut reaction to like seeing how the pandemic's been going on with baseball? Because I know like my boyfriend's a huge sports fan, and he's just been watching like a car crash kind of.
I've been enjoying it. I mean, I think one of the things I hate about sports is when you hear the hecklers and just people get ragged on, you're like, just leave them alone. You know, it's like they're doing their job. But I do miss hearing that audience just roaring sometimes, like when there's, you know, a good play or something, because it kind of adds more to the game. But right now, as is, it's the purity of the game. You know, it's like I play softball, and it's just like playing softball because there's no audience. You know, so whatever you do, it is what it is. But I didn't think it was going to happen. I didn't think that they would squeeze in 2 months and have the playoffs after that. But it was I'll take what I can get because I that's my sport. So
yeah, I think it was interesting too to kind of like watch them try to make up for a lack of a crowd with like the cutouts or pumping in the crowd noise, because like you have to just like thinking about like the player's perspective, like it must be so weird. You're used to dealing with like these huge stadiums of people screaming, and like you can just kind of drown everything out, but then it's like, like
Yeah.
the catcher farts and you can hear him behind you. Like,
This is weird. I'm watching sports and I can still hear my own thoughts. Something's wrong.
So it's
This isn't having the effect it normally does.
But yeah, so I don't know. I was just curious because I wonder what NASCAR is doing for the pandemic, because I feel like football has been pretty much like universally, football has failed with managing coronavirus, specifically the Baltimore Ravens here in Charm City.
Yeah.
Clearly.
We're the best.
But like, I mean, I guess NASCAR is like the safest sport right
Well,
now.
NASCAR, they've actually replaced all the infield with just golden retrievers. So that's their, yeah. They're like, yeah, white people. We'll just
a popular choice with their viewing audience.
You just see dogs just doing this,
Yeah, it'll be great.
Good times.
But yeah. So, tell us a little bit more about your podcast. So 500 episodes is like a pretty decent stretch. Like, it's impressive that you've sustained something.
It's not. It honestly isn't. It's I did like two a week, so that's how it kind of built up. So it comes out to like 5 years, but I just got tired of writing. I used to write a lot, and I got dry. I couldn't do anymore, and I was like, what other ways is there to write and create? Then I heard another comic goes, I just talk into my phone. I just like walk around and talk into my phone. That's how I write. And I go, that's not a bad idea. So I started doing that. I did maybe 6 episodes. Then I said, you know what? You need to own your thoughts. Like whatever you think. That's the difference between comedians and normal and regular people is normal people won't voice their bad thoughts, so I decided to just go, let's just put it out there. But really it's just me sitting in here just with my eyes closed, just kind of like thinking of topics and just kind of like daydreaming from an angle. So
that's really cool. So would you say like at least one of the motivations behind the podcast, it sounds like that's your sort of writing technique for stand-up, is going through that stream of consciousness into
there's some stuff that I've said out of my mouth. I was like, oh, where did this come from? And then you just write it down. Or even like when I perform sometimes, like I just go to a place and it's just organic, so it kind of feels more real. But I think the more that you do, the more you write, the more you talk. It gives with comedy, for me, it's like there's the thought process, and when you write it down, it's completely different than you performing it. That's different to like what you have in your head. So like there's like 4 different segments to it. At some point it's you gotta be happy with the end product.
Well, yeah, I think it's interesting too, because I come at it, I feel like for myself a little bit from both angles sometimes, because I on the one hand am, like I've mentioned before, a librarian. So like normally when I do my set, it is not organic at all. It is like I have written down these jokes and I am reading them. But on the other side of that, like me and Ros have been doing improv for like such a long time that's where a lot of those like really edited things that get into like the scripted version do come from, just like talking and like doing the scenes.
Nobody knows that you're going off script, or like that you might have messed up or whatever. Like nobody knows, so it feels like it's all there.
And I think that's like something a lot of the people that we've talked to have as like a common thread is like, I know Winston said like he when we interviewed Winston Hodges, he said that he just records every set he does. Every single time he's on stage, he records it to like critique himself. And then he managed to have so much material that he could actually make his own little special out of all of his recording. Yeah. And then I think when Ralph was on, Ralph said like he always records himself no matter what.
Yeah, he like talks into his phone, and he gets really like, I thought that was like kind of on like the left brain side of the spectrum, because it sounded like he was also like listening back to the same bits done on different nights over and over to like see where like he had changed his delivery and how the delivery changed the reaction from the audience. And I was like, that was really intense to me.
How do you do it, Tom? Do you record yourself?
I do, just because like I like to get I think a lot of mileage out of the stuff that I write, though, that it was just kind of like a natural byproduct to make notes. Like for this show, it's like really it's just a live stream, but I'm able to like get more out of it because the stream becomes like a YouTube video, the YouTube video becomes a podcast, and then it makes it really easy too, just for like practical note-taking purposes. This is like my life hack I give people or to comedians, is like one of the things I do is since it's on YouTube, I'll just download the transcript of the auto captions, and then I'll have like notes of my set, and it makes it a little bit easier to go through, because it's also, I think, about just making it as easy as possible for yourself, because if there's too much work involved, I won't do it, and then I won't ever look back at my set. And it was actually like this last Sunday where I was doing a mic, and it was like 5 minutes that I had cleaned up just by like collecting all of the failed jokes from like previous sets and like giving them a little bit of attention. So it's nice in that way.
Have any tips for the Zoom mics?
For Zoom mics, I mean, for that information, you'll have to check out our new feedback mic. No, plug, Too Funny Feedback, check it out. But no, I think that like the main thing is that like, yes, like you will miss like the sound of like audience laughter, but I think because I have, again, like a bit of an actor background, I had to learn to like do the jokes the same way in the rehearsal room where there's not an audience, and like the people in there and like castmates and stuff have also heard the jokes like 10,000 times. So I think taking it from that approach and just like trusting that you have to trust your own sense of humor, since you're not getting that reaction, right? So you have to trust that, trust your own judgment when it comes to your jokes, that like they are good enough, and then when you take them to a live mic, eventually they'll be fine. But as far as like doing it in Zoom, because for a lot of people that's been the end goal, like they are perfectly happy doing Zoom mics, and if they never do live mics, they'd still be happy, and they'd still, you know, have a good time doing stand-up comedy. But like with that, you just have to kind of like treat the Zoom room and really your camera just the way you would treat any other audience. And at the end of the day, it's all the same shit. We're all just trying to connect with each other. Just trying to get paid to be people's friends. Sorry. What was that, Ross?
I'm just like, we're all tired of looking at the people we live with and ourselves.
Yes.
That's also true.
And our abusive cats.
But since you brought up kind of like the Zoom mic culture, I do want to ask you if you don't mind talking about, because I was reading your blog too, because you don't do enough things. You have like a million things going on. And in your most recent article, let me see what I have here. It was 10 years in comedy, and you kind of go over like some of the revelations, but obviously a lot of it is kind of centered around the pandemic, and some of it around the Zoom mic that you've been running. And you kind of mentioned this night where you had like 33 comics on, and like just it sounded like some things went hectic. So I don't know if you want to unpack that story a little bit with us, and kind of what you learned from the experience.
So I've been doing the Zoom thing for maybe a month or so, and it wasn't like it exploded or anything. This one night, it just like one page, it was like 2 pages. So I was like, where did these people go? Like, I had no idea what was going on. That I couldn't keep track, and I was just overwhelmed with my first time with doing this thing. And the room just kind of got out of hand. There was just a lot of people that weren't introverts. They were just kind of like these douchebaggy people that just like to blow hot air. And well, they went after so they went after me. They went after the bobbleheads, but I kind of let it go because I was like, let's just keep it going because there's just too many comics. But then they went after female or lady comics, comedians, and it kind of became more like, this is my focus on you. And I think one was very attractive, and they kind of zoomed in on her. They're like, hey, you know, the reason why that nobody is laughing at your jokes is because we're too busy staring at you. Like, it would just became this whole like charge thing. I was kind of expecting certain jokes to come out of it, and I felt like she kind of well, the jokes that she said was very kind of like on that same line. So if I was a comic, I would think that that'd be okay, but it wasn't right. So it got to a point where another comic was made fun of because she had dye in her hair, and a comic goes, it looks like Rosie Perez had, or Rosie O'Donnell had period blood on your, or she sat on your head and had a period or something like that. And she got offended. She was like, fuck you, I'm done with this. Like, can I cuss? I'm sorry if I.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think
Okay.
I've cussed
all the time.
a fucking ton on this show. Yeah.
Yeah, so she wasn't happy. She blocked me, and she just like ripped me a new one. She was like, don't do this, guys. Mike, it's not for us ladies. This guy's, it kind of came on me, but I didn't see it because it was blocked. And so other people were like, hey, you know, what happened last night? And it just kind of like became this huge shitstorm. And I just had to, you know, go like, what was that? You know, like I didn't even sleep that night because I felt really, I wasn't happy with how it turned out, but at the same time, like I didn't take control of that situation because I just wasn't ready for it. So I learned, and I had to grow from that moment, but that was a big moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I definitely relate to that, you know, like as far as, you know, sometimes like it can get very overwhelming and like very out of hand. And since, you know, I have my own Zoom mic, I definitely like, even just from the technical side, like you're talking about the multiple pages, like when people come in and you don't necessarily expect it.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah.
I also don't know how some people do it where it's like, and God bless them, like they'll just like post a thread and it's like they somehow are able to like pull their set list from like a 5-page long of like comments and stuff. But like, yeah, I think it's definitely difficult, especially like when you're trying to navigate the things. Like you want to be a responsive host and you want to like make it a great environment for everybody there, especially since it sounds like, you know, the name suggests like this is supposed to be geared towards introverts. To then have like that kind of activity and you're not necessarily ready for, let alone like have the technical know-how to like, what page are they on and then how do I even mute kind of thing. So I get that. I relate to that. And you know, I do want to say that like having been on your mic, I'm sorry that like it sounds like this was that comedian's impression of it. It kind of
no, I mean, I needed that. I honestly needed something that actually made me go, hey, you're in charge. You know, you need to make this. If this is your mic, you gotta, you know, it's all about you. Like you take responsibility of that. So it was a good wake up call for me. I didn't even know that there was a mute, or that you could actually kick people out in the room. I was like, somebody told me that. He goes, you can actually just kick these guys out. I was like, what? Like, that's how I was not even aware of what Zoom, the possibilities of it. Because like I said, I've only done it for like a month, and it was an easy month for me. Yeah. It wasn't that bad. So.
Well, keep in mind, in case it comes up, because I had to learn this recently, is that after you kick somebody out, it's normally also a good idea to lock the room. Because otherwise...
What is that?
I was like... Well, because otherwise I was like... I had like kicked somebody out, and then they just used the link to come back in, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Damn it.
So if you lock a room, that means nobody can come in, even if they've never been in before, or
what? Sorry.
The lockout. What is that? Is that like? If
it just locks the meeting so that like if you leave, people can't come back in, even if they have the link.
And if they were never in previously, they're just locked out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess you have to kind of like make sure that like the people for the night are in, especially if you have a longer going mic. I feel like it's very common practice for people to like
show up later.
Yeah, skip the first half of the show if they know they're going last. Which is like, it's cool, especially like some of these mics, I'm like, they're 3 hours long, and I try and see everybody's set, but I get tired too. But no, that's really good to hear. And it was gone for a little bit, but part of why I wanted to ask this question is because it just made a resurgence, so now people can go and sign up for your mic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel
more introverted than ever.
With the comedy scene moving online in general, there's going to be a lot of growing pains. Like,
Yeah.
if that woman had been at a live show and someone was making fun of her, like, if you do that and it's like not in good humor, you run the risk of literally getting your ass kicked after the show by somebody.
Yeah.
Like, and they always talk about like the internet, like people are less afraid to be abrasive and cruel because like we aren't having like that exact interaction that you would have in person. So I think growing pains like that are kind of something that's unfortunately sort of inevitable, and it's more about how we react to them. Like,
Yeah.
we had the same conversation with Nico Lukoff, who created the Displaced Comedians Facebook page, and he was like, he's had issues similar to that he's had to deal with, and he was like, I'm just a funny guy who's trying to do some comedy, and now it's like I have to be like, oh, there's all these problems I wasn't expecting, and how do I respond to them like an
like
adult?
pseudo-social activist, yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that's good to know, though.
Tom, did you have a question? I was just like, since you call it Introvert's Paradise, would you consider yourself an introvert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm enjoying this. I think that's part of the interview with the Chronicle. I think the angle Scott wanted to go in was how that we need laughs and comedians are actually dying right now because they're not doing comedy. And I was like, we're dead on the inside to begin with. That was kind of my attitude. And I think he wanted to say like, are you missing the stage? And I go, I'm actually an introvert. Like, this is paradise for me right now. Like, this is my green room. I get to hang out, get to do a couple of jokes, and I'm out. If I don't want to hang out with somebody, I'm just, I'm gone. So I mean, I miss it. I really do miss it. I had no idea who knew each other. So for me, I'm pretty mean to my friends, but then it's like they know me, but I didn't know that these people didn't know each other, so that was just hard for me to like, do I tell them to, do you guys, mute or what? So it was a bad night for me.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make it relive that too much.
No, I mean, it's good because like I said, I have to remember it to grow from it. So
yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a shame. Like, it's the same thing with the Displaced Comedians group and Nico. It's just like, just try to do some fucking comedy. Can we all just be nice to each other? Or if not nice, like cordial. I don't know.
But you bring up something. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
What I learned with comics is we need some sort of guidelines, because if there isn't, then it's just
all chaos.
Yeah, all chaos. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So and that's the thing. Like, we do take some sort of guidance, because that's everybody's open mics. They have their own set way of doing things. So it's not like you can go, this is the way. How come you didn't do this or whatever? Like, everybody does it a little bit differently. Like, for me, I do the icebreakers. I ask people some stupid question to
oh yeah. I think I had like, which Avengers would I be?
Yeah,
that was like my question. Yeah, well, like it's a memorable thing too, obviously, because I like remembered that question just now. It's a great way to get people engaged. But you bring something up that I thought was interesting too, as far as like, I kind of understand a little bit why that journalist kind of wanted to go that direction, but I'm glad that you didn't, because stand-up, because of this whole Zoom scene, I think has been kind of unique in that way, where I almost feel like it hasn't been hit as bad as some of the other areas of the arts, and partially because it's such an independent art anyway. What are your thoughts? I mean, I feel like obviously like the professional comedians who like were about to go on tour aren't able to, but on the other hand, they're also doing stuff online.
I think you hit it around the head. I think the comics that don't believe in doing this, they just go, I'm out. I'll just wait until it's over. Then, I'll jump back on board. But the reason why I did it's because I just want to keep my sword sharp. Like I want to write new jokes. I want to keep growing, and I don't want to sit and wait for the pandemic to be lifted. How I got in, like I remember I heard about Zoom. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like the thing for the meetings that people hate, that people talk about, and how they hate all this stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that. Like with just comics, like who's gonna watch this crap? Then I got my shows that I was supposed to do live became Zoom shows, and they're like, oh dude, we're actually getting paid more for this. You got to try this. So that's when I decided to start Introvert's Paradise, because I wanted to build my rhythm and just kind of like learn the rhythm of the Zoom stuff before I jumped on a paid show. So that's how I mean, it's different. You're right, Tom. It is a different angle for the arts that people don't really get to experience. But this is kind of like what we have right now. This is, like I said, it's not comedy, but I don't think comedy was comedy back then. I think stand-up, like the Bob Hope stuff, or even like, so at some point it just starts to progress. Then you get like the Lenny Bruces, and you get the Richard Pryors, and then eventually it just slowly evolves to this huge organic thing. But before, I mean, nobody ever thought about filming yourself and just calling it a special. Like how you know what I mean? Like they call it a special, like it's supposed to be special. Now it's like not even special anymore because everybody's doing it.
I took my clip from 20 Zoom mics I did and just made a montage of like a year in my closet. That's what my special would be called. You heard it here first. But yeah. Okay, cool. That's awesome to hear that. Otherwise, all right, what else can we talk about? We talked about the podcast, we talked about that stuff. So as far as the stuff that I've kind of mentioned that I've learned from running my own Zoom mic, as far as things that will directly impact me in my stand-up as an actor, as far as like building the personal brand. Have you found that you've had any learning experiences like that? Like, comedy aside, if anything, this trajectory has kind of taught me how to market.
That's a good one. I don't know how to market it. I can tell you that much. What I learned through Zoom is be more myself. Like I don't think I would ever show off the bobbleheads or I talk about certain things that happened to me. But I felt like since I'm in this safe space, because it's my room, that it made me more comfortable. And I think that's kind of how I've become who I think this is. What I'm trying to say is I feel like I've found my voice through being in my own personal space.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah, I think it definitely like adds that level of comfort, and that's kind of something that was stand-up theory almost before like literally taking it to your bedroom and getting really comfortable with it. Is I feel the goal for so many is like to create that relationship with the audience when you're on stage, of as if you are just hanging out in your bedroom with your bobbleheads.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. But...
the audience is your bobbleheads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just imagine the audience is naked and they're bobbleheads, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, we joked about that last week with Mike Moran, because I was talking about how my secret to fighting stage fright, because I have really bad anxiety, and so like for the first several years I was doing improv, I just couldn't look at the audience.
Wow.
Like I'd be on stage and I would just be interacting with my scene partner, and I just wouldn't look at the audience. Now, like, I just don't wear my glasses. If conditions are just right, like when I'm on stage, everything's just kind of a blur. And that's like my secret to like stage fright.
So what happens when you have to read something? Do you just go, hold on?
We don't put her in those games.
No, well, so I'm nearsighted, not farsighted, so I can, you know, I can read stuff up close. It's just like looking off in the distance is the problem.
How about you, Tom? Do you have stage fright as well too? And what is your solution?
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like I am naturally an introvert, I think. But because at this point I've been doing theater and various performance arts for so long, which it's actually part of why I got into it was just because like I came from like a family where one of the main concepts, I guess, was like part of working on yourself and becoming a balanced person is you have to identify where your weaknesses are and then make those your focus. So it's like because I was introverted, I ended up like going through and like doing all these like performance arts things. And also like I guess I enjoy it sometimes too. But that has kind of like I think built on the skills where I would normally be terrified, and I am still terrified a lot of the time, I've at least learned enough technique to literally just hide it. And actually one of the techniques I have learned is like Lakakian, and it's like all about the neutral mask and like the variations of, so it's like, well, how are you not terrified on stage? I am. I wear a mask and I hide my feelings, like we all do in some way, but in a very literal sense. At least when I think about like performance. But
I got mine from Lost. Do you guys ever used to watch that show?
I remember it.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it's I just let it happen because it's inevitable. If you have fear, you're like, so for me, I just let myself feel it. I just let myself feel it. Then at some point, I just go, all right, you felt it. Get over it now. Like, you know, it's already over and done with. So let's move on. You know, like it's one of those things.
Yeah.
That's so cool, though. I wish I had that type of attitude to just like kind of go with the flow. I love harping on being uncomfortable with myself, and it's very bad for me. But yeah. No,
I just like the adrenaline rush of like getting off stage and being like, okay, did that really scary thing. It's done now, and I feel amazing.
Oh yeah, and that's part of it too. It's like people forget that like without the stage fright, that's where all the excitement comes from. Like no risk, no reward.
Yeah.
So
Do you guys miss the rush, Roz?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot actually. So I host Mondo Baltimore, which is like a monthly film series, and it was taking place in like bar venues in the city, and our longtime like bar home closed. So
Oh.
yeah, so and we had been doing it there since it started. So we had been doing it there for like 9 years, and so there was like this kind of like couple months where we weren't having Mondo because we weren't sure where we were going, and we had that first like the first Mondo back, like there was a big audience, and I got on stage, and it was a really good movie, and it was a great night, and then I got off stage, and it, like the rush just hit me, and I was like, you don't notice when it's not there, but when you're back and you have it again, you're like, oh my god, I've been missing.
it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, it's such a weird phenomenon for me, because it'll be like a nagging feeling that something's wrong, and then I won't realize until I like force myself to perform, and then I'm done, and I'm like, oh, this is what I've been missing.
Do you guys remember your first rush? Your first, I can't sleep because I'm so high right now.
I mean, I do. I do. I was doing like a play in high school, but it was very improv based. It was like a modern adaptation of like one of the Commedia dell'artes. But it was really like it was a high school. It's probably really bad, but it was really fun. Like I just like I got to like play a lot in that show, and again, a lot of it was improvised. So my high school director at the time, like, just let me go to town, like, change the script. I like added my own bits in there about like Build-A-Bear. I had a like little, what I didn't realize at the time, because I hadn't explored stand-up yet, was like, it was a bit. That was my first bit, I guess. And then like also stuff like within the show where like I get to slap people with a sausage and like just like really dumb
That's not
stuff.
phallic at all.
Well, I was working through stuff, but well, like that, and then like it was also like something where like I was like the first time getting that same like laughter from an audience, and then even more so after the fact, because I guess it was just like something that was on the locals' radar. Is like, it's a small enough community where like, oh, the high school's doing a play is like actually a thing to do in town, and then like having strangers come up to you and be like, you should do this, like,
right,
as
the
your
second
thing.
part to this question is, do you still feel like you're chasing that same high, that same rush as the first one?
I don't. I'm over it. I feel like the rush for me also like came from getting that reaction from the audience, but I've gotten to a place which I hope is better, where I'm doing a lot of my jokes for myself. Not that I don't want other people to laugh, but like trying to see how far I can take an idea.
Right.
What about you, though?
How about you, Roz? What's your first, and do you feel like you're still chasing it?
I'm gonna probably like I've just always like, my personality is that I don't do anything in advance ever. Like every homework assignment from elementary school through grad school, I was do like without reading anything. Like, this show wouldn't exist without Tom, because he's the organized person behind it.
Yeah.
Like, and so like, I mean, I've kind of been improvising all my life, because every time I've ever had to give a presentation in class, like even my earliest memory is from like 5th grade. I had to give a speech and I forgot about it. So I just got up there and I completely winged it. And everyone was like, you know, applauding, and the teacher was like, oh, good job, whatever. And I was like, I fooled them all. And that's the first time I got the big rush. And I was just like, oh, fuck, I can do this. So to me, that was like probably the start of it. And I definitely still think I chased that high. Like, I tried.
Obviously, you're doing improv.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I still try to chase that high. I mean, like, I'm probably not anywhere near where I want to be as far as being good at stand-up, but I still do it and push myself to do it, and I'm not afraid to like experiment with stuff. So I think for me, that's the main benefit I get out of performing, because I mean, it's certainly not money, and it's definitely not fame.
What? I'm not making money from the arts? But I think also too. Oh yeah. No, I was just gonna say, and I do want to hear Kevin's answers too. But just kind of like talking about the rush and talking about Sidebar a little bit is, I think part of like what I miss, and part of the rush too, is also it is so much these like comedy events, and now they've moved online, which is cool. But it's also like, for a lot of people, I feel that is their community, and you know, the bar where the open mics are hosted is the watering hole, and that is how we connect. And it's those precious moments between being asleep for a third of our life and spending 2/4 of it, like 1/2 at work, and blah blah blah.
I think there's also no excuse too. I mean, you look at all like Josh Gad was hosting stuff like Back to the Future reunions, or or other movies. It's impossible, because you can never get all these people in the same room at one time. And since the pandemic has happened, there is no excuse. Like, you can do it, you know. So at some point, you're going to get everybody together. Yeah. That's the beauty of the Zoom stuff that we're doing.
Yeah, it's like, it is the closest I've found. It's actually like pretty close to that semblance of like having community again, because we had also just come from our like improv troupe ending before everything hit, which is a separate story. And I want to hear though about your first time and
Which
Jason
highs?
Rush. Yeah.
It was Gotham's in New York City. It wasn't that big. This was like the bottom room, like the basement room. It was like but it was a huge crowd. It was like over 100 people. A lot of family friends were out there, not mine, but just people. And that first time I heard that laughter on me saying something that I didn't plan on saying, I just kind of felt like I should say it for the moment. And it just, that wave, you're just like, holy shit, what is that? It gave me the confidence to finish the set. And I couldn't sleep. I was in New York City and it was pouring rain, and yeah, I couldn't sleep at all. It was just, I go, that's it, you know. Am I still chasing the high? I hosted a open mic in San Francisco, and it's usually comics, but we actually had a crowd today, and everybody just didn't do that hot. And I closed it and had the room buzzing, and I walked down the flight of stairs and I walked out and I was like, and it's pretty much like what Colin Quinn says. It's like, so what? You know, I made these assholes laugh. You know, like that's so yeah. I don't think I'm chasing the high anymore, but I did chase it for a few years because that first rush is just like, it's what you live for. You go, this is why I'm doing it. You know.
Yeah.
It really is
like
a buzzing, like you say.
Yeah, you gotta have that high in the beginning, because like you're just gonna go on stage and suck for a while. Just, like,
you gotta like something about it to go up there and like,
right.
At least speaking from my own experience, eat it most nights.
Also, I will say one thing about open mic nights at Sidebar is the place that my boyfriend owns. Comics are like unexpectedly really good tippers. Like, cause he and I would like bartend those nights together, so I could like watch the comedy and make a little extra cash. All the comics were like a solid 20% above tippers, and I was like expecting, you know, all these dudes who are out late, like, you know, working shitty jobs so they can still get some stage time or whatever, to be cheap. No, all of them. One guy gave me hot cocoa.
Oh.
That was not poisoned, because I'm still here.
Woo!
But, yeah.
That's such a weird thing.
It might be a Baltimore thing, because I swear to God, in all the places that I've been to, most comics just drink what the other comic drinks, which is just water. You know, like, yeah, can I get a water bottle? No, just from the tap. You know, I'll stick my mouth underneath the sink. Just I just need some water.
Yeah.
So if you're a venue and you're considering whether or not to host an open mic, they're good tippers, bringing some income.
Results are mixed, apparently, though.
If you're looking for somebody to organize your open mic, hit me up at blah, 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 blah. No, we're running a little bit low on time, so I do want to just make sure that I get in the one question that we end every interview with, which is, I want to know a little bit like what's up next on your roster as far as projects, but like in a more broader sense, like what is your ideal trajectory for you in comedy?
Wow. Okay. I haven't told anybody about this. I've like kind of like when I got to comedy, I didn't really tell anybody. I do feel a little bit weird saying it, but I think I would like to try stuff like improv and possibly get into the world of television.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are good goals, yeah.
Yeah, there's just something to it. I think with comedy, you can only go so far in the way that people get catapulted. Because like nobody knew who Seinfeld was until he had a TV show, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with Robin Williams. Nobody knew who these people were until you see a show. Even like you see the stand-up specials like Nate Bargatze. Nobody really knows who he is until like I think he was supposed to get a show on NBC. You know, like that's at some point. And I don't want to be the main character or anything. I just need something that could actually help carry me into a point where they go, okay, I get this guy. Maybe I'll, I'll write about him in the San Francisco Chronicle or something. So
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. But would you say that like the overall thing, the true love is still and always going to be stand up?
yeah.
That's
I know
that's totally fair. That's not like a wrong answer. Don't worry. That's
yeah.
cool.
I just don't know what the future holds right now with the pandemic. So I'm just taking it as is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure when things start opening back up, I know you're gonna do great at improv because you're already hilarious,
Oh,
and
thank you.
I'm sure, like, I mean, you'll be doing more acting stuff than I've probably done just by like being in California. Like,
Oh, I
it's also
doubt
a
it.
great area for it, though.
DC's pretty good, right?
It's okay. I have feelings about the DC scene.
It is just a short bus ride to New York City.
4 hours, yeah. It's like a wink. But that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do a little outro and say thank you so much, everybody, for watching our show tonight. Thank you so much, Kevin, for hanging out with us and talking with us. Thank you so much, Roz, as always, for being my amazing co-host. And
You're welcome.
I just want to remind everybody to tune in to all the different shows that we got going on. We actually have a couple of new ones coming out, but if you're just into this one, we'll be having the podcast of this out in a couple of days, and then we're on every Wednesday. I had to check what day of the week is it. But every Wednesday from 8:30 to 9:30 Eastern. Again, we had Kevin Wong on this week. Next week, we're going to have the comedian Nick Dees.
Yay.
And I believe that will be, I think, our like season finale. There's not going to be a gap between like that episode and the next one, but we did like the next cycle. Well, we did like the next cycle of like people to like have for like future episodes. So that's what I'm going to say is going to be the season finale, and then we're going to move on. But if you like the stream and you want to support us, don't forget you can visit district-comedy.live to make a donation, or district-comedy.com/support. Somehow I did that like wrong, even though there's slashes that go both ways. Let's just dab. But dabbing's still a thing, right, young folks? Anyway, I'll stop talking now. Thank you all so much.